So you guys have sent in some really interesting stuff for this deep dive.
Yeah.
And we're looking at some YouTube videos on the Cold War.
Okay.
But with kind of a twist, right? We've got some historical analysis, which is pretty standard.
Sure.
But we're also getting into some like esoteric perspectives.
Right.
And maybe even a little bit of reality bending.
It's out there.
Yeah.
So we're going to be a good one.
We're going to see if we can figure out what's fact, what's fiction, and then
what's real, what's not.
Also, what's still kind of influencing us today.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so fascinating about these sources is that they're not just looking at the Cold War as like a historical event, you know, dates and figures and all that, but they're looking at it as almost like this battle for the soul of humanity playing out on these multiple levels.
Oh, wow.
That we may not even fully grasp.
Okay, so let's start with this whole concept of reality jumping.
Okay.
Because I gotta say, one of the videos we watched, it kind of blew my mind with this idea that Earth can like shift between different timelines based on, you know, major events that happen.
Well, it uses this really interesting analogy of like skipping grades in school.
Okay.
So like imagine instead of going from first grade to second grade to third grade to fourth grade to fifth grade, you skip all the middle ones and you go straight from first to fifth.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So what happens to all that learning that you missed in those years?
Right, all those crucial, like, foundational years.
Right, exactly.
Like, what did we miss by skipping those realities, potentially?
What opportunities maybe did we miss as a species? What lessons did we not quite get to learn because we sort of fast-tracked?
It's like we fast-tracked to this level of technology without the emotional or spiritual maturity to, like, wield it responsibly.
Yeah, it's like we got the keys to the car without having, you know, had a single driving lesson. Right. So are we really prepared for this level of responsibility?
And the video suggests that one of the things that triggered this reality jump was like the sudden collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yes, because you would think that ending the Cold War would be a purely positive thing.
Exactly. Like everybody wins, right?
Supposedly right.
Right.
You know, an end of the threat of nuclear war, all that.
Yeah.
But these psychics, these mediums that are featured in the videos, they suggest
otherwise, yeah.
They paint a little bit of a different picture. They describe it as a disruption of like a familiar world order, even though it was a negative one.
So it was like we were used to operating with this like...
with this enemy.
Singular enemy and this fear.
Yeah, and it's almost like one of the mediums compares it to like a sudden withdrawal of adrenaline.
Oh.
Like the world is so used to operating with that kind of energy, you know, on edge all the time.
So when that went away, we didn't know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah, it's like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Where do we put all this energy? And several of the mediums suggest that absence of that clear enemy created like a void.
A void.
And that void had to be filled, and it got filled with other conflicts.
Okay, so are they saying that, like, some of these conflicts we've seen pop up since then?
Yeah.
You know, from the rise of terrorism to, like, conflicts in Chechnya and Georgia? That this could be, like, a result of that reality jump and us trying to fill that void?
Potentially. It's really making you think about these events in a very different light.
Wow.
And it leads us to another really interesting theme that pops up in a lot of these videos, and that is the esoteric or spiritual significance of the Cold War.
Okay, so we're not just talking like physical war and geopolitical maneuvering.
Right.
Now we're talking about like energies and spiritual implications.
Like exactly.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So a lot of them talk about this concept of like a lingering energy or a veil from that era that's still affecting our global consciousness. And they describe it in different ways. Like some of them say it's like snow or fog or even like a restrictive shell around the planet.
And that sounds kind of out there, right? But if you think about it, like intense emotions can leave an imprint on a place, right?
Absolutely. You ever walk into a room where like two people have just had a huge fight?
Oh, yeah.
Even if they're gone, you can still feel that tension.
You can feel it in the air.
And so if you think about the Cold War and all that fear.
Decades of it.
Decades of fear and propaganda and just the constant threat of annihilation.
Right, like just looming over everyone.
It's like that left an energetic residue.
That we're still swimming in.
That we're still dealing with on some level.
Yeah, and it's not just this vague energy either.
Right.
There's also this talk about old weapons needing to be used up.
Yeah.
And that could be literal, like physical weapons.
Sure.
But I'm getting the feeling that it goes deeper than that.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think they're talking about maybe outdated ways of thinking, or these fear-based ideologies, or just this tendency we have to divide the world into us versus them.
Us versus them, yeah.
Yeah, so using those up could mean like dismantling those patterns and finding a new way to relate to each other.
So it's not just about like winning a physical war. It's about winning a war within ourselves.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the Cold War wasn't just a historical event.
Yeah.
It was a manifestation of some deeper issues, some tendencies that we have as human beings.
So we're being challenged to evolve.
I think so.
To grow beyond those patterns of fear and distrust.
Yeah.
And move towards something.
To create something new.
Yeah, something more, reflective of our interconnectedness.
Exactly.
So are we actually moving towards a more positive future?
Right.
Like, are we making progress?
That's a great question. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because another theme that comes up in a lot of these videos is the connection between the Cold War and the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, and that's where those psychic insights get pretty intense.
They do.
Like one medium even describes Ukraine as being like Russia's heart.
Right. Which is interesting.
Like that explains this strong emotional reaction. Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily...
It's not justifying anything.
No, not at all.
It's just looking at it from an energetic and a psychological perspective.
Exactly. And, we're not taking sides here.
Not at all.
We're just exploring the ideas.
It's exploring.
But what's fascinating is that they're seeing this conflict as being influenced by unseen forces, possibly rooted in past traumas or historical narratives that are still playing out like on this subconscious level.
Subconscious level, yeah.
It's like how much of what we see is genuine political differences versus just these deeper unresolved issues.
Yeah, like what's bubbling up from the collective unconscious.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
And then another medium takes it even further.
Even further.
And suggests that this whole conflict is actually a carefully orchestrated show to distract from a rising China.
Interesting.
Which, again, that idea of manufactured conflict that echoes the Cold War.
It does.
Right, with all the propaganda and covert operations. So are we just seeing history repeat itself?
Well,
but with new players and a more sophisticated playbook?
Potentially. And that leads us to yet another really fascinating connection.
Okay, can do it.
That several mediums make.
Okay.
And that is the link between the Cold War and modern agendas, like the 2030 plan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get into that next. Right?
We are.
Because I'm dying to know what they have to say about that.
That's a good one.
All right, so stay tuned.
Yeah. We'll be right back. It's fascinating how some of these mediums, they see the 2030 agenda not as this like genuine attempt to address global challenges.
Right.
But almost like a continuation of the same systems of control.
Okay, so using different tools.
Different tools, yeah.
Like instead of,
Instead of nukes and tanks, it's...
Sustainable development goals.
Sustainable development.
Global partnerships technology.
Yeah, but the underlying goal is still...
It's still
control.
Okay.
Manipulation.
So it's like they haven't really changed. They've just gotten more sophisticated.
Yeah, they're just using a different playbook.
That's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is a little bit, and some of them actually describe it as like a failed project.
A failed project.
Yeah, or like an outdated system.
Okay.
That just doesn't work anymore.
Like humanity's outgrown it.
Yeah, like we've evolved beyond it.
But those in power are still clinging to it.
Clinging to the old ways.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, okay.
Yeah.
If those systems are crumbling, what's replacing them?
What's next?
What's coming?
Right.
And one of the mediums paints a pretty chilling picture.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about a future ravaged by a fake blood plague, which then becomes the justification for mandatory microchipping.
For protection.
Right, for our safety.
Right, right.
Of course.
Which is interesting because that's a pretty common fear.
Yeah, you see that a lot.
Yeah, like the manufactured crisis to justify control.
But this medium also sees humanity's awakening disrupting that plan.
Oh, okay, so there's hope.
Like we're waking up.
Waking up, yeah.
And we're not going to fall for it.
They're going to fall for the old tricks.
So maybe those in power have underestimated us.
Maybe they have.
Maybe they've miscalculated.
It's possible. And it makes you think about how much of our lives are dictated by systems that we didn't choose.
Right. Like
think about it.
The algorithms that control our social media feeds.
The algorithms, yeah.
The economic structures,
All of it.
All of it, yeah.
And as we delve deeper into these sources, we see this really interesting shift.
Okay.
in the perceived puppet masters.
Okay, this is where it gets a little creepy.
Yeah.
Because we go from, the Cold War dominated by specific nations to this more diffuse control system involving higher beings or interdimensional entities.
Yeah, and some of them describe these entities as almost like emotional parasites.
Emotional parasites, okay.
Feeding off of...
What does that even mean?
Feeling off of our fear and our anger.
Oh.
In the same way that mosquitoes feed off our blood.
So the more we fight amongst ourselves,
the more divided we are.
The stronger they get.
Yeah, the more they have to feed on.
That's a chilling thought.
It is a little bit.
But there are other mediums who
Yes.
describe a different kind of entity.
Right.
More like observers.
Observers, yeah.
Like they're watching us with this cold, detached wisdom.
Yeah.
Orchestrating events, maybe.
Yeah, like they're running experiments on us.
But they're not emotionally invested.
Not invested in the outcome.
It's like we're rats in a maze.
A little bit, yeah.
And they're just watching to see
what we do.
What we do.
Yeah, it's unsettling.
It's unsettling.
It is, but it also makes you realize the importance of our own emotional states.
Okay.
Like how we choose to engage with the world.
Because if our fear and negativity are empowering these parasitic entities, then maybe our love and compassion
or unity
can starve them.
Starve them, yeah.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
No. There's a glimmer of hope there.
Like we have a choice.
We have a choice.
We can feed the darkness or we can starve it.
Exactly. And it brings us back to this idea of human consciousness.
Okay.
Being the key.
Being the key to all of this.
All of it. Even the sources that paint this really bleak picture of external control.
Yeah.
They all emphasize this point that...
we have the power.
We have the power.
Okay, so break that down for me a little bit.
Okay, so one of the mediums describes humanity as like a giant antenna.
A giant antenna.
Ticking up signals from all these different entities and forces.
Okay.
Translating them into our physical reality.
So our thoughts and beliefs.
Our fears, our desires, all of it.
Act as filters.
Yeah, like tuning into different frequencies.
So if we're constantly being fed messages of fear and division and scarcity, that's what we're going to manifest.
You're going to see more of that.
But if we choose to focus on love,
unity, abundance,
we can create a different reality.
It's about changing the channel.
It's about changing the channel.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a powerful concept.
It is.
So it's not just about escaping the matrix.
No.
It's about becoming conscious creators within it.
Exactly.
We have the power to choose the reality you want to experience.
And that's where the awakening comes in.
The awakening, okay.
Yeah, because these sources suggest that
humanity is waking up.
Waking up.
To its true potential.
To its power.
And as we wake up, we become less susceptible to manipulation.
The program.
Less likely to buy into those narratives.
Of fear.
Of fear and division.
It's like we're shedding.
Shedding, yeah.
Outgrowing the old limitations.
Yeah, and as we do, we're creating space for something new.
Something new, something better, hopefully.
So what is that something new?
That's the big question.
What does this new reality look like?
Well, the sources offer glimpses.
Okay.
But they don't give us like a clear blueprint.
So we're still figuring it out.
We're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because...
Because it's not fixed.
It's not fixed.
It's still being created.
It's fluid.
By our choices.
By our choices, yeah.
Wow, okay.
So we have a role to play.
We have a role to play.
In shaping this future.
It's not predetermined.
Not at all.
We're not just pawns in some cosmic game.
We are active participants.
Co-create.
Co-creating, yeah.
That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing when you think about it.
But also kind of a lot of pressure.
A little bit. Yeah, it makes you think about the weight of your choices.
Yeah.
Not just for yourself.
But for the whole planet.
For everyone.
Wow.
So are we choosing these timelines consciously?
Or are we being steered?
Are we the authors of our destiny?
Or are we just playing out roles?
In a script that we didn't write.
That's heavy stuff.
It is.
I don't know if we have the answers.
Maybe not.
But it definitely makes you want to be more mindful.
More conscious, yeah.
Of the choices you're making.
Of your energy.
The energy you're putting out there.
Absolutely.
Because if we entertain this idea of multiple timelines.
Even just for a second.
It changes everything.
It does.
It challenges us.
It challenges us.
Yeah.
To be more conscious.
To step into our power.
To choose.
Yeah. Yeah.
The timeline that aligns with our hearts.
With our values.
With our values.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've gone from Cold War history to interdimensional beings to multiple timelines.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the point.
Maybe it's about expanding our awareness.
Challenging our assumptions.
Making us think outside the box.
Yeah.
Empowering us.
Empowering us.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of expanding our awareness.
Yeah. There's one more concept in these videos that I want to touch on. It's this idea of like multiple timelines or parallel realities.
Okay.
What if the choices we make aren't just shaping this reality, but actually like spinning off whole new ones?
So that takes us into like quantum physics territory.
Oh, okay.
The many worlds interpretation.
Okay. Break that down for me because I am not a physicist.
Okay, so basically this theory suggests that every time we make a decision, every action creates like a split in the universe.
Okay.
It branches off into this new timeline where that alternative choice plays out.
Okay, so bear with me here because this is where my brain starts to melt a little bit.
It's a lot.
Are you saying that there's like a version of me out there
potentially
who decided to be like a world-famous chef instead of a podcast host?
Could be.
Or like a rock star or something?
It's possible.
So there are like countless versions of ourselves?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Living out every possible choice we could have made.
Every conceivable path.
Okay, my mind is officially blown.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is.
But it does kind of tie in with some of the more esoteric ideas that we're seeing in these videos.
Okay, so how does this connect back to the Cold War?
Well, remember that medium who was talking about Earth jumping between realities?
You know, like skipping graves.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So maybe those jumps weren't just random.
Okay.
Maybe there were shifts in our collective consciousness.
Okay.
Influenced by big events. Or even orchestrated by some of these unseen forces that we talked about.
Yeah. So like the collapse of the Soviet Union, that wasn't just a historical event.
Right.
That was like a pivotal moment that pushed us onto a whole different timeline.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
It is, and it makes you think about all the stuff that's happening now.
Yeah.
Like the conflicts, the technology.
The awakening.
Even the awakening. Is that all part of this?
Maybe it's all part of this navigation.
Yeah, navigating these timelines.
Through these different realities.
So what are we creating?
That's the big question.
With our thoughts, our actions, our beliefs.
Yeah. What kind of timelines are we spinning off?
Are we choosing these timelines consciously?
Right. Are we in the driver's seat?
Or are we being steered?
Are we being manipulated?
Are we truly the masters of our destiny?
Or are we just playing out roles in some cosmic drama?
These are some big questions.
They are.
And I don't know if we have the answers.
I do not.
But it does make you want to be more mindful.
More intentional.
About the choices we're making.
Absolutely.
And the energy we're putting out there.
Because it's all connected.
It is.
And if even just for a moment we entertain this idea of multiple timelines, it changes everything.
It really does.
It challenges us to be more conscious.
To step into our power.
To really become co-creators of our reality.
To choose the timeline.
The timeline that aligns with our hearts.
With our values.
With our highest aspirations.
Wow. So this deep dive.
Yeah.
It started with the Cold War. But it's taken us to some pretty unexpected places.
To say the least.
We've explored psychic insights.
We've talked about unseen forces.
The power of human consciousness.
The idea of multiple timelines.
And ultimately the question of...
What is reality?
What is reality?
And what is our role in shaping it?
And that's a question that each of us has to answer for ourselves.
Exactly. There's no one right answer.
But I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's a journey of exploration and discovery.
And it's a journey that we're all on together.
So to our listeners...
Yeah.
Keep questioning. Keep exploring.
Keep an open mind.
Keep choosing the timeline that resonates with your heart.
Because you have the power.
You have the power to create.
To manifest.
The reality you want to experience.
And that's a pretty amazing thing.
It is.